Good morning. I wanted to check in today with regard to the social care reforms which were making all the headlines back in autumn. I think it's kind of gone a bit quiet with all the bad news of Ukraine and cost of living and the economy going down and interest rates going up. So I wanted to check in with regard to social care reform, kind of what's going on, give you a kind of current state of play. Nothing is definitive. It's still an ongoing kind of process. But I want to take you back to last September when the government set out its position on what it wanted to achieve with regard to social care, kind of long-term care reform. Boris stood up on the 7th of September to set out the government's position and intention for the future. The government produced a Build Back Better plan for long-term care reform document, a really pleasant piece of bedtime reading for you, but really it kind of set out the government's position and intentions over the next few years with regard to social care reform. I must say that there's nothing definitive yet. There's white papers going out, there's consultations going on with various stakeholders, so nothing is really set in stone yet. So please keep your eye out for our videos and look at the website for any updates, and just by all means pop in and say hello and we'll kind of take you through the current position. So this talk will help if you are going into care or you're thinking about planning for care for the future. It'd be a useful update just to see what the kind of general direction of travel is in terms of social care funding. Obviously this is going to concentrate just on the financial aspects of care costs. The reforms also look at the greater integration between care and the NHS and looking at various different aspects of IT and technology and how all of this can be used to improve kind of long-term care outcomes. But today I'm obviously going to just discuss what the kind of financial reforms are proposed to be going forward. So the main three intentions of the reforms were firstly around the family home. Now the emphasis has been placed on not having to sell your home in your lifetime, with the emphasis being in your lifetime. Now this isn't a particularly new proposal, but because you've never had to sell your home because, well, since 2003 the deferred payment agreement has been available to not have to sell your home in your lifetime. I'll come on to that. But there has been more emphasis placed going forward on not having to sell your home in your lifetime. No one will be worse off as a result of these proposals, and a lot of people will be better off, it's proposed. So although I'll come on to, it's not a particularly radical change, it is a good change, it is a change, and it should be beneficial for a lot of people. And also the means test. So the thing that made all the headlines is going to be more generous under the new proposals. So I'll come on to that as well. Let me for a moment talk about what the current situation is. You might be familiar with what the current financial situation is in terms of long-term care funding, but I wanted to quickly run through that in order to then compare what the proposals are compared to what the current situation is. So the current situation is that if you have assets over 23,250, you basically become a self-funder. So you have to pay all your care costs without limit until you spend all your money in some cases. So if any assets over 23,250, you become a self-funder for your care costs. The lower limit is 14,250. So the government very generously give you protection for 14,250 of your assets, so your assets don't go below that. And if you have assets between 14,250 and 23,250, and then you're expected to pay a contribution, towards your care. So those are the current limits. There are what's called disregards, some of your assets that are excluded from that assessment. So the main asset is usually the main house, your main residence. And this tends to be if one spouse has moved into a care home, is incurring care costs, but the other spouse is still living in the main house. That means that main house is then excluded from any financial assessment. Other assets which are excluded are life insurance investment bonds. So if you've got any investment bonds that you've taken out years ago, that could be quite useful to keep those, because they're disregarded and don't form part of your financial assessment for local authority care costs. And also any investments or any money that you have in trust. So obviously we do a lot of inheritance tax planning, trust planning, putting money into a trust for future generations, ring fencing assets for future generations. Any investments or assets that are held in trust are effectively protected from long-term care costs. That's not the subject of today's video, but I would recommend that if you are looking at that kind of pre-planning, that you do that well in advance of ever needing care, because if you do it at the point of need, then the local authority will simply say you're just depriving yourself of assets. So any pre-planning to be done well in advance of ever needing care. The current situation around NHS funding is that if you have obviously needs around healthcare that qualify for the NHS, that's fully funded at the point of need, obviously. And if you're in a care home and you require NHS nursing, then funded nursing care is available to you at £187 a week in a care home setting. Family home, the situation around the family home is, as I said, quite similar to what the proposals are, that you don't have to sell your home in your lifetime. There is the existence currently of the deferred payment agreement, so which basically means that if you don't have any assets apart from your main house, you don't actually have to sell your home to fund your care. You can apply to the local authority for a deferred payment agreement, and basically that means the costs of your care will run up against the value of your home. What tends to happen is, once you've passed away, the family will sell the house at that point and then pay back the local authority at that point, basically. So let me talk about some of the proposals for the social care reform going forward. So as I said, it's going to be an extended means test. So instead of the 23,250, that's going to be proposed to move to £100,000, so which basically means that if you have assets over £100,000 now, then you have to pay for your care. That's the upper limit, so that's a good thing. The lower limit is proposed to go up to £20,000. So the government will basically protect £20,000 of your assets. And that's gone up from 14,250. If you have assets between 20,000 and 100,000, then you'll be expected to contribute something towards your care. And I've got a really complicated spreadsheet which shows you just exactly how much you have to pay. So if you are in that kind of area, don't hesitate to get in touch, and I'll kind of help you through that process. The new cap, so what made all the headlines was the new cap of £86,000 on personal care costs. So it made all the headlines, and I guess there's a danger that people, the general public, saw the 86,000 and thought, oh, fantastic, I don't have to pay more than 86,000 towards my care. Unfortunately, it's just not as simple as that, and I'll come on to why that's the case in a minute. But it's certainly not going to be £86,000 for the vast majority of people. The proposals are due to come in October 2023. So anybody that is self-funding now, paying for care costs now, Unfortunately, it won't be a retrospective thing, it won't be a refund. It's all going to start, your meter will start towards the new cap in October 2023, and any new people starting their care journey in October 2023, basically. So we've got a bit of time to get our heads around it. The government's just starting to try and look at some of the detail behind it, but it doesn't start till October 2023, the new proposals. As always with these things, the devil is in the detail. So although the announcements in the autumn was good, and it is a change, and any change is good, usually, it does mean that a lot of people will be better off by the proposals, but the devil is in the detail, and we need to look at the detail to really see what it means for individual people. The first thing I need to say is that the costs towards the cap are only personal care costs. So we are not talking about accommodation costs, living expenses, what was called hotel costs, in the media. So when you're staying in St Monica's or any of your care home of choice, in the local area, you'll be given a monthly invoice, a monthly bill, and that will include all of your costs, and they won't split out the costs between personal care, living costs, just general costs of staying in that home. It's only the personal care costs element of that will go towards your care costs. It's estimated that people will start reaching the 86,000 cap around 2027, 2028, if it starts in 2023. And I've estimated that the total cost for people is likely to be around £200,000 to £300,000 that they've spent in order to get to that 86,000 cap. So unfortunately, it's not just the £86,000 that we're going to be spending on long-term care costs. In addition to that, it is costs related to eligible needs only, not all care costs, just eligible need costs only, and I'll come on to that in a second. And finally, it's only the cost that the local authority would have paid towards that care, not what you might actually be paying towards that care. So generally speaking, the reality is you've probably realised quite quickly that you've got too much assets, and then you'll be funding your care, and you'll go into the marketplace and you'll choose providers for your care needs in the local community. What you pay for that care will be a lot more than what the local authority pay for that same level of care. And it's only the local authority cost rate that will go towards the personal care cost cap. So you can see that it's not quite as generous as it first seems potentially. Just going back to the eligible needs, so it's set out in section 13 of the Care Act 2014, another great piece of reading if you are well inclined, and that sets out the national eligibility criteria of what eligible needs are. So there's a list on there what eligible needs are, and basically you have to not be able to do two or more of the outcomes on that list. And also have a significant impact upon your mental well-being as a result. The key thing here is eligible needs are the bar is set really high, so it's really kind of difficult to get an eligible need. So we're talking, to give you an example, we're talking not being able to dress yourself, not being able to clean yourself or go to the toilet. It's not about something being inconvenient or really difficult or really kind of a struggle to get by. We're talking about it being impossible to do these things in order to qualify for an eligible need. And so it may be that there's many self-funders out there. You may yourself watching this, you may be paying a lot of money towards your care costs because you want that, you want to have the best life possible, but those costs may not contribute towards this new cap, this new 86,000 cap under the new proposals. So in summary, in terms of the new cap on care costs, it comes in October 2023, so nothing you're paying now will go towards that cap. It's not going to be retrospective, so the meter only starts running from October 2023. It's for personal care costs only, so no other costs related to that will be included. It's for costs related to eligible needs only, and it's the cost that the local authority would pay, not what potentially you are only paying. So although it does sound quite depressing, but I just wanted to kind of check in with you and give you a good understanding of what these proposals actually mean, so you can potentially do some planning, you know, well in advance, or perhaps if you're going into a care scenario, you can start looking at the numbers a bit closer. One of the impacts of this new change means that you'll have a lot closer tie-in with the local authority, a lot more contact with the local authority. As I said, what tends to happen at the moment is that there's a very light touch, and you'll just quite quickly realise that you're a self-funder, and you'll go out and you'll organise your own care and not have much involvement with the local authority. Under the new proposals, because there is a cap for everybody, a cap of 86,000, every single person will have a care account, and it will be the local authority's job to actually set up this care account for every individual person and monitor the costs, you know, that go towards the cap for that person. I'm not sure how that's going to be done yet. I know there's going to be some pilots in constituencies just to see how that's actually going to work in practice, because I know there's quite a big backlog already for care needs assessments and financial assessments. I'm very happy to, by the way, to walk you through that process. That is a subject for another video in terms of the complexity of the process of applying for care, and I'm very happy to hold your hand through that process. But it might mean that there's an extra step to go through in order to qualify for the cap, that involvement with the local authority at that stage. So just a kind of a byproduct to let you know about before the proposals come in. So today's been quite a brief overview of what the direction of travel for the reforms is. As I said, really planning for care costs has to be done well in advance of ever needing care. So please don't hesitate to get in touch with regard to planning for ring fencing, protecting assets for care costs, way before ever needing care, to make it as effective as possible. But hopefully it's been a really useful run through of what the current proposals are. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to get in touch. I'll get back to you, or if you need a one-to-one initial chat, I'm quite happy to say hello and pop by the office. We're in Westbury-on-Trim on the High Street. I'm sure you've seen where we are, and be great to see you. Thanks for joining me, and yeah, see you next time. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.